Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? Hope you're all well. We are back with another video. Curran, mate, how you doing? You good?
Yeah, all good, buddy. It's been a busy couple of days, and yeah, it's disappointing to loss, but I think it's the losses that you learn a lot more from. I feel like we learned a lot about this second team squad, and I was saying on the Twitter that I mean, whatever's left of Twitter now, this second team squad and the Europa League. This is going to be a sobering wake up call, because this Europa League squad, I think we're also keen on winning this Europa League. And if you're going to go into it with these guys, it's not going to get easier, guys. This is a Brighton first, half second string team, and they played okay, but you're not going to beat this team with a Barcelona or even a Juventus at this moment in time. There's got to be some stepping up here, and I think a lot of the team needs minutes, and I think that was what I was trying to get across. I think on the preview that we needed. Yeah, great to see you too, Alex. Basically, there's a lot of minutes needed in this squad. This midfield was very, I think, raw is the best way to put it. I think there's still a few dynamics that need to be worked out. I don't know about yourself, but for me, I think it's an interesting way to get into it, because I think that is the key to this team, because we've both said that the dynamics in midfield will be this in the future, with the left being a bit more reserved and the right being the flyer. And if this is going to be the case, we're going to have to develop that dynamic. So I was interested to see what you thought. I mean, I was at the game, and I think, yeah.
I don't know. Look, I think look, on Twitter, Twitter's like a cesspool of narrative. And so it's really rare to do that. But, when I had the ability to watch the game back, I didn't see what a lot of people were saying, even when they were coming back, in terms of who was playing well. I mean, I think some of that was journalist influenced. I will be honest. We were just talking off air about Fabio Vieira, for example, where 100% in the first half, he had like 3 or 4 really poor touches. There was a big moment in front of goal that he really did poorly against. There was a moment, a couple times just in the midfield where his touch and his pass was just very off, and it was just a really poor pass, and you accept that, like, it's poor. But then to say like the whole performances was terrible, I didn't agree with at all. I mean, there was areas, and many times in the second half, he's at the edge of the box with a one-touch flick to send people through on goal. They're not necessarily on his wavelength, but he's able to contribute in the final third, and I'm just trying to see this horrible showing that he had, and I just didn't see that at all. I think the best thing to describe this game was that a lot of players played in moments. And so I think when I had to look back, there were some really good performances in certain sections. There was the same culprits that were denying responsibility that really cost us ultimately in the game. But when I had to look, Mohamed El Neni was another one that was
I did the screenshots. We've got a lot of screenshots in terms of, I mean, not a lot. We've got a couple that are just endemic of what happened this game. That the same culprits being overly aggressive, and the same culprits shirking responsibility in key moments. I think we can all guess who those are going to be. But
also, you know what I did like, Kern, like, just really broadly, I felt that this B team is really starting to understand the press, like, just really something broadly. I felt the entire front line
way to get it started, because I think, I mean, look, if you look at the press, it was a man-to-man press. We went straight Fabio Vieira onto Caicedo, and really just bullside winger going to, because you can see Marquinhos. I'm just, excuse you Alex, but I'm going to have to get you off the screen there, because Marquinhos is basically tracking their right back, and I think it's
by the way, by the way, Karan, sorry, just to interject, like, he had an excellent game, Marquinhos, for me, and he really grew in the second half. I think he just wasn't, influential in a 1v1 setting. But guys, this is
100%.
Tariq Lamptey. He's going against one of the best fullback options in the Premier League. Like, make no mistake about it. And, I thought he kept very good pace with him. And, he was absolutely somebody that was receiving really well, but delivering really good crossing quality. I think he could be amongst with Fabio Vieira, of course, our most accomplished crosser of the ball. And, I think Marquinhos was definitely a threat, particularly in the second half, and we'll probably get to it, but he's just so tactically aware about his duties off the ball and in the press. I felt like he was just really aggressive to Tariq Lamptey all game, and he really didn't allow him much. And, bar the odd choice, I think really Reece Nelson is the only one that lost, Tariq Lamptey in terms of the goal. But like in terms of what Marquinhos was able to do off the ball, he was super diligent, following his marker. And I thought that this, by the way, when people are talking about Fabio Vieira kind of getting used to English football, Fabio Vieira is on Casado. Guys, I don't know if you know, but Casado is one of the most physical midfielders in the league. And so for me, it was very clear that the intent was to kick him. And, he was receiving a knock, but I don't think he was ever discouraged by it. He was still showing for the ball, and he was still producing moments, especially in the second half.
I think that's the biggest pet peeve I have of the narrative is that
Yeah.
somehow it was funny from being there myself. The narrative was, he doesn't show for the ball. He's not showing. I was like, bro, you didn't even watch the game. Like, why? Like, Charles, like, I love Charles Watts, but a Charles Watts tweet just sent everyone into meltdown. It's just like the guy was fine. He wasn't amazing. I mean, I put some poor balls through.
Well, he played in moments. That's what I mean. Like he played in moments, and I think a lot of people played in moments. There's only one player on that pitch that I felt could hold his head up high for 90 minutes, and that was Reece Nelson. And we'll get into the kind of.
He's the only reason I wasn't pissed about that game.
Yeah,
I went there and I thought for that entire time he was on the left, he was amazing. It's one of his best performances. I think you said it earlier in one of the group chats we're in that it's probably his best 90 minutes under Mikel.
Well, not probably. It was like for me, I've been looking for performance like that just to understand his mentality, because a lot of what Reece Nelson has been made up by, kind of not even just Mikel Arteta, by the way. Mikel Arteta has really bigged up Reece Nelson this season, and it's not just him, but you can really see his involvement with the squad. And I've said in past streams, he is probably the player with the quickest feet in the squad. He's truly bipedal, and he's got a great burst. But do you know how I knew that he was back? When he was receiving the ball, he was doing tricks. And I've never seen that confidence from Reece, except from Hale End.
It's not just that though.
But I know I was about to get into it, because but that is emblematic of the biggest problem with Reece Nelson, because he lacks aggressiveness and he's consistently not been able to take his man.
That's forward. The point though. And he was so aggressive in taking on his man though. There was that. So aggressive.
There was that, but mate, I need the arrogance back. That is what aggression is, by the way. Like, it's not just taking on your man, but it's this idea that, when you receive, I'm going forward. And for me, he's never had the arrogance to humiliate somebody, and that was what he was all about at Hale End. That is what made him the talent that everyone identified with in his generation. And I think when you had a look at, yesterday's game, it wasn't even just his off the ball maneuvers, but, he was constantly looking to turn people. And even in a cul-de-sac, when there was multiple people around, his option was forward. He didn't recycle the ball. He was the only player who I felt that was consistently looking to play forward. And for me, Reece Nelson's biggest excuse is, look, technically very secure, somebody that has not been poor, but has done his due diligence and just hasn't really offered a 1v1 threat. And that has been the criticism of Reece Nelson since he's been in. But this game, it wasn't the case. He receives on the half turn. He's looking forward. He's looking up constantly. And he was the biggest thrust in this team consistently for 90 minutes.
Describe it. I think we could just show it, because I think this chance is emblematic, because you can see Reece pointing to where he wants it, releasing there, getting Katie basically releasing him into space. And he's just aggressive. He's incredibly aggressive. He wants to burst past, and he runs all the way up the pitch and gets the ball to Vieira. This is the Vieira pass, the very Vieira shot you're talking about. And he was very, very sort of aggressive is one way of putting it. For me, it's the ability to recognize that you need to be the man on the pitch. I think he was the one that you saw that it was like, okay, get me the ball. I want to have the ball. I need to have the ball because no one else is doing it. I mean, Marquinhos, you were mentioning his off the ball work. On the ball, he was still, he's still a bit raw. He's still not really, he's chasing his touch a little bit. He's sort of slipping a bit. He's not really finding, I mean, it's funny.
There was decision-making about taking
100%.
Taking his man on. But he also, at the same time, he grew massive confidence. He was a big reason. So, I want to go in sequential order because we've been bouncing off a little bit. But when you have a look at the first half and you have a look at who's playing well in moments, I think Rob Holding was a severe hindrance to this team. all game. And I think Carl Hein was really struggling in terms of getting our build-up started. So when you have a look at it, the first 20 minutes were poor. They were back and forth. Brighton probably had a little bit more of the dangerous possession that I would have liked. But what happened is, Carl Hein would receive kind of deep here, and his long passing was really poor. He got
Yeah.
good power to the marker, but it was constantly floated. And so you were never winning any duels. And by the way, Marquinhos, for somebody so short in stature, was winning a lot of aerial duels really proficiently. But, Carl Hein wasn't making the right decisions. On the ball, but also the way he was completing it, his technique on it was very lofted and chipped. And so what ended up happening was, we ended up just losing the ball pretty consistently. And then Rob
The other
Holding,
thing,
when he received it off Carl Hein really quickly, he was somebody that just has zero accuracy with his long balls, and he kept going long early, which was really frustrating me because all I wanted to do was to develop some possession in the back. And what was really frustrating was giving possession reins to Rob Holding and not to William Saliba. That was probably the biggest mistake in the match right now, because now that you have Rob Holding dictating the buildup, he's basically the one responsible for a lack of control. And, Mohamed Al-Neni is showing he was doing well to show, by the way, under pressure. He constantly made himself available. He wasn't hiding in the buildup, but Rob would ignore everybody in the center, and he would just go long. And I think for me, it was just really, really poor work by Rob, who not only, we'll talk about defensively because we have to, but just in an on the ball sense, he was just far too aggressive. He wasn't hitting his man, and it was consistent. It was just consistently losing the ball, and I expect better from an experienced pro, especially when you've got Sambi Lakanga, who was struggling in the first half. Like, he's a player that's flipped the switch. I think Sambi did really well in the second half.
But it's still the main thing for me, and we'll get into it because I do want to go sequentially, because the reason why I brought that up, that I took that Brighton press screen up, is because what they were so good at is the ability to basically surround our centre midfielder and cut off the lanes to the centre backs. They basically shut off that first phase short passing build up. They made Carl go long, and when Carl lost the ball, he would get nervous. His passing, because that was especially in the first half, I was literally right behind him, and our build up, it wasn't sort of, he was going along, but as you mentioned, it wasn't direct. It was sort of just like fairy, just lop it up there and sort of put it on the thing and put it on people's heads, and it wasn't, it wasn't punchy. It was very sort of nervous and sort of just trying to get the tempo up, because we were cut off in that first phase because he didn't feel comfortable enough to basically play through it. And Mo was dropping well, but Mo was crowded out the entire time.
Well, Mo was just man marked by Danny Welbeck, like, smartly, and that's that's what every team is going to do to us. Look, we know that in our system, our lone DM is really a wall pass for our center backs to kind of work into an overload wide. That's what we do, and teams know it. So they man mark the center to kind of stop the central progression from happening. But the one thing that I want to speak about on Carl Hein is, look, this is a boy that, a lot of people took pelters for, Arthur Okonkwo, but essentially he's an Estonian keeper. He's a full fledged international, but he's somebody that's known for blunders, and he's somebody that I haven't had very high hopes for as a goalkeeping prospect personally. Like, I think it's time to move on from him, if I'm really being honest from you. But I don't mind the idea of going long because the press is high. And I don't want to critique that, but what I do want to critique is the execution. And if you are going to go long, you need to strike through the ball. Matt Turner, for example, is somebody that also struggles with his long passing, but at least he's striking through the ball and his technique's well. And I think in that instance, I can kind of excuse the intent as long as you're producing the technique. But he wasn't. He was chipping balls.
Communication that does. Matt leads that build up. He's not someone who's going to get shirked and sort of just nervously kick it out. He will. That's
an experience thing, though. Like Matt Turner's
exactly.
Matt Turner's like an experienced international, but also he's played adult football and he's an MLS. Like, I get that, but I just think that Carl Hein's approach was just really poor all game. He was putting off nervous energy from the start, but he wasn't helped by Rob Holding, who again was bouncing for some reason, asking to receive the ball short from the goalkeeper. And then when he did receive short, he would go long and the ball would just come back right at us. And so it was almost a case of, we never built any kind of momentum in the first 20 minutes. We never built a period of sustained pressure whatsoever.
No,
so
because the thing is, we weren't funneling the ball into central midfield very well. We were trying to either go short and long or go long and then come back. We weren't going, either short and short or going, to the halfway line and with authority, as Alex mentioned, with authority. We weren't doing either. We were sort of haphazarding and guessing our chances. But I do want to get into some of the things I've produced because we are already 15 minutes, and I do want to get into some things because the first thing I want to discuss is Cedric, because Cedric, I don't know what's going on with Cedric. I think he's being I know he's rusty, but these kind of aggressive high moments where he's sort of just trying to get the ball high and win it back, and Saliba's there as well, and Saliba had to cover for him so many times this game in this sort of situation, and this is the reason why I brought this one specifically up, is because Cedric, he was aggressive meeting his marker, but he was overly aggressive a lot of the time, and it meant that if he got turned, we were going back in the other direction a lot. And you find this, and this is what we were saying on the preview, if you remember, George. We were talking about you cannot have Holding and Cedric on one side. It just can't happen because both of them will be overly aggressive, and both of them will lose their marker and will be screwed on that side, especially with Matoma, which ended up happening anyway. So yeah, I wanted your thoughts on Cedric.
I mean, Cedric was poor all night. He's at fault for the second goal, majorly at fault, and it's because of him being overly aggressive. And I've talked about this in a tweet previously, and we've mentioned it on the pod. But there are certain players that is really frustrating. But they take themselves out of play and they pass on responsibility to someone else in the team. And these are experienced pros, and I'm talking about Rob Holding and Cedric here, who are just really poor. You're right. They're overly aggressive. You can't have them on the same side because they're both mentally wanting to be front foot defenders, but they can't be front foot defenders. And, by nature, they get outpaced in large spaces. So I just don't understand why they're so aggressive. This whole idea, by the way, when you're on Twitter, and I talk about controlled aggression quite a bit on this channel, the literal definition of controlled aggression is absolutely meeting your marker quick. That's not the problem I have with Cedric. We actually instruct our fullbacks to be super aggressive out wide. I have no problem doing that. But what I do have a problem with is being flat-footed when you meet your marker like that and you're unable to swiftly turn. And, you have to approach your marker slow. You can go fast, and then once you're really close, you do this little stutter step. I used to call it fire feet when I was coaching. And that is controlled aggression because you meet your marker quick, but you don't commit. You don't go all the way up on your front toes and you engage void of any concern behind you. You've got to go in quick, and then you slow down and you guide them out to the line. Use your byline as an extra defender. And that's just something that, Cedric isn't doing here. And I don't understand it because he's a very experienced pro. His body shape's all wrong. And it's not just a screenshot here. He's just not approaching it well. I mean, he has to guide his
The only reason I took this is because it was happening again and again. Like we were pushing, like Saliba was pushing up high because that's Saliba. He wants to push. He wants to meet his marker. He wants to make sure he gets.
Well, this is smart. Like this is the press, right? Like Danny Welbeck's the outball here.
But the thing is, we also had Cedric who, look, it was either a foul or he wasn't. Like your our most raw talent is on that side. You need an experienced pro there to to help guide him through, help him through these kind of games. You just need him because you want to get the Marquinhos minutes in this competition. And when you have someone giving away fouls, turning over possession, giving away through throw-ins again and again, it's not conducive to a comfortable environment. And bless Marquinhos, because he was doing a lot of work off the ball, as you mentioned. His off the ball work, he was meeting his marker, he was cracking the fullback. He was
strong in contact too. Like
he was winning his duels when he could, when he was put under pressure.
He was also doing it. Like Curran, like he was also an aerial outlet so often.
Yes,
he won a large amount of aerial duels. And like for me, the biggest frustration that I've got right now is you've got experienced pros that are basically staggering your line. And I think there was a comment by Alex earlier that he felt that Kieran Tierney was poor. I thought he was okay, but Rob Holding just destroys his ability to be high and wide. He destroys his ability to be compact
the whole problem is I think he wasn't great, but when you have Carl constantly putting the ball out, constantly putting.
I'll be honest. I thought he was fine. I don't necessarily agree because I actually thought when he did have possession of the ball, he was really dangerous. He was making runs high and wide, and he was really looking for Reece Nelson.
But my point is that when you're constantly being missed in the first phase, if the ball's going out on your side, and Marquinhos is. As good as he was in the air, the ball was missing the mark. It was either being floated where we lose the duel, which is the case for the third goal, or you're getting the ball kicked out into touch, or the ball is sort of you're trying to contest it on the line, sort of jumping for your life.
I don't really agree because again, when you have a look at it, Kieran Tierney's role is changed. By the way, you have to look at he's no longer doing the inverted role. He's very much the high and wide fullback when he's playing right now. That is different, by the way. Earlier this season, he was absolutely trying to play the Zinchenko role, but I would encourage everybody to watch it back. We were asking Sambi Lokonga to drop deep a lot more, and he was rightfully high and wide, and he was looking for that option. So even in build-up, the issue was Rob Holding kept going 5 to 10 yards back, and he needed to be the aggressor. When Gabriel, by the way, gets on the pitch in the second half, and we'll talk about it, he plays the role that we needed all game from Rob Holding. And that was being super aggressive to your marker, but stepping into midfield. Rob wasn't doing that. Rob was going 5 yards back, and he was choosing the long ball that he was unsuccessful with, by the way, and bypassing Kieran Tierney or any midfielder, by the way. So I thought Sambi had a really tough time in the first half, but once again, Rob was at fault for going long and basically missing that opportunity to turn. Now, I think Sambi wasn't showing enough for it in the first half. I think he got a lot of confidence by the flurry at the beginning of the second half, and he ended up
100%.
showing for the ball.
I've got a
far
couple
more
of
in
chances from
passing.
that, but the main thing,
But it's Rob. Like what I'm trying to get to is the distances between your fullback and your center back. They can't be extremely far apart, and they
No.
were in this game, and that was completely because of the center back being Rob Holding. And when Gabriel came on, those distances, we didn't see them. He was aggressive to his marker, but he wasn't overcommitting. He was back on his heels, and he was making sure to defend the space behind. But when he received the ball, he wasn't bouncing and then looking for a long ball. He would carry the ball into midfield, and that is super important. And it's what would have closed the distances between him and Kieran Tierney. So when people see that Kieran was poor, I disagree. You know, he was just uninvolved in the first phase, but that doesn't make him poor. I think it was basically on Rob, and I thought that when Kieran was in possession, he was one of the few players, along with Reese and Eddie, by the way, who had a really good game going forwards.
That left side did well. It did well.
They did well.
I do want to get into the goals, the first one especially, because I'm just so proud of Reese. I really, it's one of, I love the run. Obviously, oh no, that's the wrong one. Basically, holding onto the ball back in one of his best moments of the game, he actually recovers the ball for the goal, and the ball floats to Reese, who takes on his man.
Yeah.
Then you're off your seat. You're basically, I was like on the edge of my seat. The ball runs through the lines. He does great, and he finds Eddie, and Eddie finishes, and it's just a great goal all around.
It's a beautiful finish, by the way. That
Beautiful
first time finish,
lovely stuff. But yeah, just for me, I think before I let you go on the first goal, I think the main thing for me is Reese being able to understand his role on the pitch. That he was the one, as I mentioned before, he needed to be the man. He needed to be the one to take responsibility on the pitch. And he saw a space behind, because Brighton staggered their press and they left space in between the lines. And when you have that ability, you can actually just get through the lines and find the space. You beat your man, and that's it. You're off. You've got that space in transition. Run at your marker. Don't go wide. Don't peel wide. Don't try and lay off the responsibility to a Kieran or go somewhere else. Run at them, and then either find a shot or find your man. And that's what he did. He made the right decision at the right time. He was aggressive in that run. He took on his man well. And when you want, I don't know what more you want in a winger than that, especially a creative one like Reese. Like, he's not on his back foot. He's not someone to look. He's not looking to combine with someone. He's looking to just run. And he ran with that ball, and he took it with him. And when he's got that confidence, that swagger, he exploded.
Look, what it is I talk a lot about this with Emile Smith-Rowe in terms of a gas pedal. And what I mean by that is somebody that can accelerate play and possession. And Emile Smith-Rowe is one of the few people in the squad that is able to do that at speed. Somebody that can carry the ball, yes, but also operate at really high tempo in those spaces, whether it's tight or whether it's large. And that's what Reese Nelson is. But that's a Reese Nelson who is confident and playing that way. Like, Reese Nelson has a level of kind of pace and power, if you really want to go for the trope there, that can really allow him to kind of run like he's running downhill. He really has that athleticism to do that.
And I think, but the intention is the main thing for me. It's not the. I just feel like there would have been a time, say, when he first came out from loan, that he would look to combine with Kieran and then try and release. He took on his man and he went. Like, the intention. That's the main thing for me. I want to see more of that. The intention to run at players, not just to do the tricky 1-2s and get through the lines. I want to see intention and aggression and pace from him because he has that in the locker.
He wanted to be the star man, and that's what I looked
100%.
at, and that is really important. And then when he's doing it, I don't know if it's necessarily a Brighton fault. I'll be honest, it's just Reece Nelson brilliance, especially in there because he takes out 3 players kind of in one swift move,
I think
faking the feint.
the spacing of their press kind of left the gap in between. But there's not much unless that front line steps up, the back line steps up into basically when they bring the ball back. There's not much they can do. They've left that gap. As I said, it's staggered.
So the
So
thing is, when you're in this position and he's able to beat his man and he's gone, you're not going to stop him. And you won't. And he has that ability to really run downhill. And then I think for me, like when he makes this decision, he's drawn the entire Brighton defense to him. Like this is all Reece Nelson's brilliance. And I need to put some special mention to Eddie Nketiah because he does do the Thierry Henry finish, but he shapes his body and the way that he was running the entire match, he basically tells Reece how he wants it. And this piece of play was just brilliant by Haaland. It was formed, it was made. It's happened so many times over the years. But I think, look, Reece right now, I will say, amongst all the eulogy, this is his best performance in an Arsenal shirt, his best 90 in an Arsenal shirt. It wasn't just with Mikel Arteta, but he finally kind of answered the call about can he do it consistently over 90 minutes and can he be the person to be aggressive over 90 minutes because he was just so vertical. He was excellent. He's clear man of the match. And I think this passage of play really opened things. I do think it was really the only bit of quality in the first half, I will say, though, because outside of that, I think Arsenal began to have a little bit more confidence to play, but the game was still very choppy, and a lot had to do with our back line in terms of the spacing that we were having. But I think for me, the biggest thing is after that point, Eddie really stepped up. I thought beforehand, Eddie was making some good runs, but Eddie was dropping a lot more, and he was able to kind of shrug off Colwill a little bit deeper in the half in his own box. I mean, I think he delays the trigger, and Colwill does really brilliantly to recover as a recovery tackle. But Eddie was running the channels really well this game, and I think it was a big stark improvement from his previous game in the Europa League, where he was chasing his touch. A lot of the actions were just really poor. They were rushed. I think here there was a level of comfortability, and I have this theory with Eddie Nketiah. He doesn't work with Gabriel Jesus because they both want to do the same thing. When they do drop into wide spaces, and they want to be able to have the space to run in channels. And they're both really smart footballers, but when you both want to do the same thing, you end up stepping on each other's toes. And I think he ended up getting a little bit poor in the second half, but a lot of that for me came down to Gabriel Jesus being on the pitch with him, and he wasn't as free kind of in his ability to penetrate that back line. He definitely looked a lot more free, and in that pressing role, by the way, on the goalkeeper, Brighton almost succumbed to quite a few goals. I mean, Eddie was doing a really good job pressuring their first press, forcing them long consistently. I think he deserves special mention. He's probably second best in the match for me. And I think it all came after that goal where he was dropping deep a little bit more. And I think the left-hand side finally clicked after that goal. It took a while. I still think that part of the issue was Sambi Lokonga wasn't showing. And in the press as well, I don't know if you go back and you watched for people in the comments, but I really noticed that Sambi Lokonga wasn't intense whatsoever with his man marking job in the middle of the park.
No,
Fabio Vieira did a very good job on Caicedo, making sure to follow him, but Sambi wasn't doing that. And it wasn't until the second half when he made a shot, ironically. There was a moment, and I don't want to do too much, but there was a moment in the second half where he opened, he awoke. But in the first half, a lot of the same concerns that we had with Sambi Lokonga were on show. He was afraid showing for the ball. He wasn't making himself available. He was having poor intensity running back to goal. His positioning was poor, but also he was hiding quite a bit. So all those things happened with Sambi. And I think with Rob Holding being so poor down that side, it basically left the left-hand side to Reece and Hope. And then on the right-hand side, I think that Fabio Vieira and Marquinhos were okay. They didn't do anything spectacular to lose or to influence too much.
I think with Fabio, I think both of them actually, their better work was off the ball than on. Fabio had a good couple of moments on the ball with a couple of crosses and things, but things didn't come off. But he actually trapped Caicedo pretty well for most of it, and he was up for it. But obviously, as you mentioned, Caicedo is one of the most physical defensive midfielders in the league. But what I wanted to talk about before we move on to the Heinz slip and all this stuff is I felt like obviously you mentioned the left-hand side, but I think we were doing a lot of sort of not U-shaped passing, but sort of just like tippy-tappy around the box. Let's try and create something, not really having any sort of penetration into the box sort of play for between the first goal and their goal. I don't know if you saw that as well, but for me, it just kind of went into a bit of a lull where we're like, okay, we're gonna reset and try and get some balls into the box, and but nothing really materialized. And eventually they got the ball back and we get into the goal because it look, Carl Hein is. I think we both are quite harsh on him, but I think this is he just slips and it just looks like he's
But
trying to recover and he
I
just doesn't
look,
get away
Kern,
from it.
I encourage everybody to roll it back. It's Rob Holding who bites aggressively in order
Yeah,
to
I know.
open the
If you look
space.
here,
And
if you look in the first screenshot I have, you can see just in the edge of the picture. If you look past number 20, there's Rob Holding, and he's just waiting. He's waiting for that, and he bites. He doesn't go.
he vacates his
But the
zone.
thing
He
is,
pulls a
if you look
Mustafi.
here and you look in the second one, you can see
Look,
that Holding is not even in the shot
it's
because he
very
bites.
frustrating because he pulls a Mustafi. Everybody remembers when Mustafi used to go and jump into midfield. He was never favorite for the ball, but he did it to deflect responsibility, and he did it to basically throw his hands up and say, "Oh my God, what happened?" And look, Rob was doing this all game. He did it against PSV. He did it here again. He was doing it all game. It was a real issue. And look, Danny Welbeck runs the channels well, but look, Carl Hein, it's a poor decision by him. You know, he could have just shepherded the ball
I
out
mean, this
wide. Like
and
I
the
don't
worst
think
thing is
Danny Welbeck was ever
this
favorite
isn't even
for
the
it.
first time he does it in the game, Holding, and we'll show it with the Mitoma goal. This isn't the first time he does it, and this is I mean, this isn't the last time he does it in this game. And we were saying before, and I think I was telling you before when I was at the game, there were times when he was just juggling the ball on his head, and then he would just give away, and then we'd give away a foul. It's like, come on, man, just get the ball. You're not bloody, I don't know, Beckenbauer or something. Just get the ball to the people that you need to get it to. Do your job. Stop trying to be this kind of ball playing centre back maestro. You're not David Luiz.
It's just
This isn't you.
it's about making an early decision. The same critiques that you have of Carl Hein about making an authoritative decision quick is what Rob Holding needs. And when you
Mhm.
simplify his game, Rob Holding is good. And what I mean by that, that also matters in possession and out of possession, by the way. Like when you talk about his ability as a low block defender, which still, by the way, are a little bit overdrawn with this whole 5-4-1 business. But when you simplify his game, Rob Holding is good. When you ask him to be inventive and abstract and creating, it's really poor. And you kind of see this. I just really am annoyed that he ruined basically all the good work. And I think Carl Hein deserves fair criticism because it is a very poor decision about his decision making when to go. He has to sweep or keep. He has to come out, but it's far too late, and he doesn't judge the flight of the ball properly whatsoever. He doesn't judge Welbeck's touch, and boom, 1-1. And then you enter the half, which for me, I was frustrated in because despite really playing poorly, we should have led the half 1-0. We basically gave them the goal
Mhm.
and a way back into the game. And then you're approaching halftime and you're basically asking from a Mikel perspective, guys, fix up. Make sure that you're technically very good. Let's up the tempo because the one time that you guys upped the tempo, it was a goal. And that was probably the most frustrating thing watching it back. And it kind of leads into the second half, really, because again, one player who I mentioned, Sambi Lakanga, big criticism in the first half, really poor in the first half. Completely different story in the second half. And, I think it all comes from this shot. Sambi receives in space, and I'm really glad that you put this. I don't think it was a very convincing shot, but that just this little passage of play seemed to waken him up a bit. Where, look, if I'm in space, I can hurt them. And I think he drew quite a bit of confidence because it was the first amongst a string of three really good chances before the goal happens where, after that point in time, Eddie Nketiah also somebody that receives deep in space, and he has a beautiful shot here. The backlift, when he receives in this left half space position to hit off the post was
Oh, sorry.
phenomenal. It was incredibly short. It was incredibly powerful. He does this so often. And I think for me, that left hand side started bubbling after a first half that had a little bit of trouble. I think Sambi was showing he wasn't being as afraid, and he deserves a lot of praise for, I think, picking it up. This was kind of the best little period that Sambi's had in a while. For me, it definitely wasn't marquee. It definitely wasn't amazing, but it was a big improvement. He was showing for himself, and he was reaping the rewards from it.
I'll tell you why I put that in. Now it's pretty simple. I think Sambi had one of those games where he was obviously, as you mentioned, in the first half, a bit and didn't show for the ball enough, and the same criticism we've mentioned of him. The second half, I feel like he was great until the final third. He was amazing until the decision making had to happen. I mean, the reason why I pulled this up, and I apologize because I forgot to. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. If you look at this, I mean, I don't mean to criticize the guy, but if you're that is not a shot you need to make. You need to just play it through. Play it through, and Eddie's through. I think this taking a shot here is.
Look,
I think that's a poor decision. Personally, I think
look, it's selfish. It's not the right decision, but he drew confidence from it. It was the only.
and that's fine. But the confidence has to. I agree. He drew confidence from it, and he was continuing to do things that I was impressed with. But there was a couple of shots where they weren't the right shots to make, and I just feel like it's all well and good. I'm happy that he was confident. I was happy what he wanted to take that shot and take that responsibility. But there's times when you have to realize you're 1-1 in the game. You need to make sure that you make the correct decision. You see Reece in the first goal, he makes the correct decision. He takes the ball away. He creates space for Eddie, and Eddie can have a nice finish. Sambi can do the exact same thing there, literally the exact same thing. Yeah, and it's frustrating because I think that he's drawing confidence from these moments, and I think that he's doing well in build up and actually getting the ball in great areas, making overlaps, helping Reece out, doing these things, and making sure that there's a more fluid left hand side, and that's great. I'm really happy to see that. It's just that final decision, he just didn't make it this game, and that's the reason why I put that in, because I just feel like it's emblematic of what the issue was with Sambi, because he was good, but not to the point where he could win us the game.
He finally opened up in terms of between the line passes, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit later. But it was after this point in time that he was actually receiving from the center backs, and he played some really good between the line passes. I mean, Eddie makes some really good runs, and he's unlucky in terms of the pass, but at least he was playing forward. A lot of times right now he was deflecting responsibility in the first half, taking it, recycling instead of going forward, and so Sambi deserves a lot of praise for that. But then, look, that Eddie Nketiah post hit, it gets followed by a Marquinhos cross, which is just absolutely phenomenal. Again, this boy has probably the best crossing ability, bar maybe Fabio Vieira in the squad. And it's just perfectly directed and timed. It was excellent. And, the header in the middle of the box here by Reece, it's really good. It's a strong, firm header. I think he does everything right. Ideally, you may want it to go a little bit more far post, but you can't really complain. This is just a really good save by Steele. And, look, after you kind of do that, there was another chance, when Sambi again gets an opportunity and boom, he takes a shot on goal. So like, once again, I just feel that there was that period kind of in that half where, between the 45th minute and maybe the 57th minute.
The score is cut off, but this is still at 1-1. We're still
in
the game here.
That's what I was saying. Like, the period between the 45th and the 57th minute was when all of these flurry of chances happened. And look, I would ideally like Sambi to cut back here, but he takes a shot, and I can't. It kind of comes down to the point that I don't want to. It's kind of a shot on target, right? Because it's not a cut back to Reece, and the issue is it's not the best decision, but at least he's taking charge and authority. It's a big difference from being passive. And so I'm like, great, but can we do that with a better decision making? And that'll come with a little bit more confidence.
That's it for me. I think great. I'm more than happy. Honestly, I'm not even mad at Sambi with this performance at all. I think he was aggressive, and he wanted to do things. He was receiving balls. He was trying to play through the lines. He was making shots and doing things. It's just now we got to click with the decision making. We got to have that, because with that, it gives you a new, like a proper player. There's a player there, because he has the between the line passing. If he's showing for the ball, great. If he's showing that he can rotate into defensive areas, or receive from the goalkeeper, or do things that can help him build up, great. But I just need to have that ability to, I think maybe if he gets a goal, it'll help his confidence, sort of like Jesus, something like this.
Well, that's what I mean, and that's why I'm not going to go and criticize the shots too much, because I know he's a player that if he gets a goal, and by the way, we don't have a screenshot here, but there was also a moment in the second half that Sambi receives in the box and has a beautiful opportunity to go 2-1, and he drags the shot wide, and he really should have done better in that instance. But again, he's shooting like Sambi wasn't getting in the box and taking shots in the first half. Like this is a very different Sambi performance from second half to first half. And I think it just came down from being a little bit more aggressive and willing to make yourself available. And that's like earning the right to play, guys. Like when we talk about that, it's really, really simple. But then we're going to talk about how you don't earn the right to play and and you kind of dissuade responsibility. And that's what Rob Holding does kind of in the screenshot here. Once again, it's a carbon copy of PSV. And it's
This
just
is what we're
ridiculous.
talking about, though. This is
Um,
exactly
you
what
know,
we're talking about.
he like deflects responsibility. It's just super poor, and then people are backpedaling here. I think some people felt like Kieran could have done better on here. I completely disagree. Rob Holding is in the widest position for zero reason. He drags himself out of position there. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, what you don't see is kind of going up with Matuma at the end is, Cedric um, right now seems like he's in a good position. I think it's just the glory of the screenshot, but he bites, which is really poor. He should have followed Matuma when he was with him, by the way, a lot higher up the pitch and continued his run. He like jumps in the middle of the park, but William Saliba has it. Like, I don't understand why he does this. And he basically gives the length of the goal for Matuma to do well. It's a good finish, to be fair. But Cedric, I don't know what he's doing. And as soon as Rob Holding is out, I don't know why he's not crashing the ball. Like, I just want to go back previously. Look where Kieran is. It's maybe 5 yards, guys. And then look at where Kieran has made up. I get Kieran's faster. I get he's got acceleration. That's excellent. But this is just so poor from Rob Holding. And it's beyond an agenda right now. I know I called him balding and everybody likes to laugh at it and everyone thinks I've got an agenda, but this is just horrific defending. And no, it's not good enough for a forced center back. I'm sorry. It costs you. And what I'm really upset with is, look, us going out of the Carabao Cup is at the end of the world. No. But what is really poor for me is when you continue to select players that have an ability to lose you a game, that are your experienced players, and they aren't just enough to say he's a good guy in the dressing room. If they cost you games, you need to earn the right to play. Austin Trusty, by the way, is a really good guy in the dressing room. He's earning the right to play at the championship. He's one of Birmingham's best players and one of the championship's best players. So when you have a player on the books that is potentially an upgrade, but offering you the same camaraderie in the dressing room, that is something that you can pair with. You can't just be a good guy and float on that because then you're only fourth choice or you're only X choice. No, firstly, you have to earn the right to play. You have to be a footballer of the requisite level. And this has nothing to do with Rob Holding's personality, but he just is continuously throwing responsibility. And despite there being injuries, by the way, I think I would have played Gabriel specifically for this game. He wasn't called up for the World Cup. There's no issues with loading. I don't think that you can play Rob Holding and expect not to have 3 or 4 chances thrown at your own goal. You're playing actively with somebody that will cost you at some point. And for me, I absolutely would have played Gabriel and William Saliba. I would have played both in this game to start with because, again, Gabriel's not going to the World Cup. You already were going to play William Saliba. You could have shifted minutes along with Ben White, by the way. You could have done that. But, the biggest issue that I've got is him continuously relieving his responsibility. When he follows, he's far too over-aggressive meeting markers. And then when he does have the ball, he doesn't have the distribution that you would really want to see. And that was one of the benefits why you kept Rob Holding is because, look, he's somebody in theory, by the way, because I don't agree with this, but in theory was a low block defender that knew his role, but in possession would release the ball at the right time and do the right decisions. He knew he wasn't the best, but he would release. That's not the case. He's gone backwards and it's time to move on. And, it's time to move on for me as soon as January, what I would do. I would try to sell him if we can. If we can't do it, then fine. But you sign Evan and Dick on a free and you move on. Like, that is a player that is an upgrade. If not, you trust Austin Trusty, who's been excellent in the championship. You have options here. There's sorry, Karen. There's just zero logic to carrying Rob Holding another season. And I do not want to see it. And that's kind of the only last little rant. I'm done, but I don't want to talk about it again because for me, as soon as you see Rob Holding on the check sheet or on the lineup sheet, you're conceding 2 to 3 chances per game purely because of Rob Holding. It's going to happen. And so I think that's poor. You really shouldn't be doing that. And if you're a team that's striving for titles and those aspirations, you cannot be actively sabotaging yourself. And when you have market opportunities, but also players on your books that can do a better job than what you have, you must make that decision. We have to be ruthless, and that's part of it. So for me, Cedric, There's no reason why Brooke Norton-Cuffy can't take up Cedric's minutes. We know that he's going to cost you. And I would rather have a mistake with a youngster that I know isn't Taden and I can know to learn than an experienced pro that I know is not going to learn, is going to keep making these mistakes and keep costing people. I would rather invest the time if I know that that mistake is coming, do it with a youngster that I know is going to be a part of the squad for a very long time. And yeah, it's enough. I'm sorry. That's basically it. But it's ridiculous. It was ridiculous all game, and that goal just sent me to another level.
There's a reason why we've wanted Nicola Schlotterbeck. There's a reason why Evan Dicker has been popping up. There's a reason why all these we wanted Lissandra Martinez in the summer. There's a reason for all of these things, and it's not Gabrielle. I'm sorry, guys. It's not Gabrielle. It's Rob Holding, and we can't keep sort of pretending that it's sort of, oh, we want to upgrade on Gabrielle. No, it's not Gabrielle. Read what I just wrote if you want it, if you think it's Gabrielle. Gabrielle and Saliba mesh perfectly well together. They are two very, very good centre backs, and they work extremely well. They have each other's backs. They are very good together. The reason why we are looking for centre backs is because of Holding. And if it's Trusty, if it's Ndicka, if it's Schlotterbeck, even if it's anyone, it's going to be right, because Pep is the same. He doesn't just stick to two centre backs. He has Laporte, Diaz, Stones, Ake, Kanji now. Like, he has a lot of centre backs for a reason, because you can use centre backs. We have 4 good ones in White, Tomiyasu, Gabriel, and Saliba, right? And they can all fit in across the line. These are there are reasons for this. This is how you build a squad to win a title. You have to have defensively sound dual monsters. And someone said to me earlier that my next piece should be on defensively sound fullbacks, because there's been a shift from the Dani Alves types and the Cancelo types and Trent types and these guys to Ben White or even John Stones or Kyle Walker at right back. And there's a reason for this, and it's because you need to be able to realize that transition football is a thing, and it's going to be something we need to deal with. And if you have overly aggressive defenders like a Rob Holding, like a Cedric, they're going to cost you games because they are overly aggressive to their marker. They shirk responsibility. They run out and they don't track back. We're going to look at the third goal now, and you can see there that if you look at that third goal, look at Rob Holding's positioning. I took the screenshot specifically, right, to show where Rob Holding is, because he doesn't track back. He doesn't.
Well, I mean, we might as well get into it. So
yeah,
look, Brighton win the aerial duel, and when you have a look at Lamptey, who then gets the ball, he continues his run. And right now, Reece needs to do better in terms of tracking Tariq Lamptey. He's keeping pace with him, but look, he's the wrong side. Like, I'm just going to be fair. Like, as a coach, you're wrong side. You got to get goal side, get on the other side, Reece. But
100%.
Again, Cedric, mate, like, you got to be 5 to 10 yards deeper. Like, Mohamed El-Neni is there. I don't know why he bites, and we're collapsing here, and there's no reason to collapse, by the way. We have numbers here, and this is the first mistake. Then when you've got this kind of breakdown, when you have the header back, the Tariq Lamptey run is it's okay. It's fast. Like, again, I think Tariq Lamptey is one of the more explosive fullbacks in the league.
Correct.
But again, Reece Nelson is going to be somebody that's going to struggle with that duel no matter what. And, Cedric makes no ability to go and crash 5 to 10 yards deeper. And he should know that as an experienced pro. I've got bodies there. It's fine. Like, guys, count it for yourselves here on the screen, okay? Mohamed El-Neni and Fabio Vieira, they've got the options there. There's no reason for you to be there. Be 5 to 10 yards back, expecting you to take over. Because, again, I would start running back from this instance, because Tariq Lamptey is their most explosive outlet in the entire game. He's been doing it all game. Follow him. And I think at the end, look, I think Reece, he has to be goal side, and it's poor at this point. But Tariq Lamptey finishes really well here in this position. But it all comes down to me, again, Cedric and that Rob Holding access. It's so poor. And it's frustrating, because I felt like when the starters came on, there was a period where you could definitely see us pushing for the goal. And by the way, Gabriel Martinelli, we don't have the screenshot. He should have scored from that first-time ball from Gabriel Jesus. Yeah. And so, look, it's frustrating with this third goal, but it's nothing that we haven't said before on this pod. And just, I want to give Curran his opportunity to kind of have a say. But really quickly, mate, Chris, if you've been on the channel, Livermento has been something I've been screaming for months right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
absolutely.
Just because this is going to be the last thing before we get into final thoughts, because I think the main thing with this is very simple. Look, you have two defenders here that don't track their runners. I think holding wasn't as bad in this one. I can admit that, but Cedric here, like brother, where are you going? Where are you going? Mo can handle that duel. You think Mo can't handle that duel? It's the shirking of responsibilities. It's the running out into the midfield. I don't understand. Maybe it came from Emery. Maybe it came from late Wenger. I don't know. I mean, Cedric was late, came later, but from Rob, I'm talking about. I don't know where this idea where you run to your marker and don't run back comes from. I don't understand it. I don't understand where you can, in what realm of defending you go. Okay, calm. I've been beat. I'm just going to jog back, and whatever happens, happens. You can see that Reece is struggling with that run. You can see what is happening on this screenshot. And what the second goal, I still feel like the second goal is down to Holding, not covering, not taking responsibility for his jaunt out wide. And this one is Cedric not tracking his not being able to run out wide to his duel. And he gets beat.
And look, like ultimately, mate, it's the same thing that we have been criticizing all pod. But look, fundamentally, I think final thoughts for me on the game was it was frustrating because it was a game in moments, and I thought that Reece Nelson finally had a 90 that you could put up there and say, can he do it? A lot of questions were, okay, guys, we know that Reece has the talent and the ability. Does he have the application to do it? This is a 90 minutes that you can say, look, Reece, hold your hands up, mate. That is your best performance in an Arsenal shirt. Carry that forward. Don't let it stop. Make sure you carry momentum and you continue doing that, because that was excellent going. Taking your man on constantly was really, really good. I want a special shout out Sammy Lakanga, somebody that I've been given a lot of stick to. But I thought that second half performance was definitely returning to a lot of form that we saw in early promise. And if he can do that a little bit more, I think that will do really well. And an underrated shout who had a really good game was Marquinhos. A lot of people may have thought it was ineffectual, but that cross in for the Reece Nelson header on the inside was beautifully timed, and he was constantly a menace in terms of facing Tariq Lamptey, who's a very important fullback in the Premier League. I thought it was a very good duel. And, the way that he was shrugging off, not just Colwell, by the way, and battling with Lewis Dunk was immense. Like, this guy is tiny, but, he's going and he's engaging in every duel. And by the way, when he's in the aerial duel, he's coming out pretty decently. So Marquinhos had probably one of the underrated. But how about you, for Curran? Look, we'll agree on Reece. That's unfair. I'm not going to ask you that. But give me somebody that was like an underrated stock rising, and then somebody that you felt had maybe a poor moment, but then a really good moment in another area.
So, an underrated performer. We haven't mentioned Saliba all game, and I felt to have to deal with Cedric. I feel like just dealing with Cedric alone should earn you points, because I'm sorry, but this is not Cedric of when he was having that good run with Saka, and they were doing that the overlap, and he was.
Can you please say Gabriel? I'm just going to give you somebody, because when he came on, he was phenomenal. He was doing everything that Rob Holding couldn't do. He even played in Eddie Nketiah with a superb ball. It was just. I'm sorry. I'm going to give it to you. Like, Gabriel was a phenomenal little cameo. It was short.
Yeah, sure, and I'm good with that. But the reason why I'm going to salute Saliba is because he has the ability to realize that Cedric can't do it offensively and can't do it defensively, and cover for both ends. He was overlapping at times on the right.
He was great.
He was defending, tracking back on the right as well for when Cedric was messing up. And I completely agree with Gabriel. That was going to be my my other one.
Your moment one.
Yeah, because he was having. I don't feel like he had enough time to be like, okay, that's a great performance.
Yeah.
But
no.
But like, I feel like he when he came on, he, as you mentioned, had did everything that Rob was lacking. He was holding us back. No, I didn't even mean that one. But like,
and so we're gonna move.
The main thing for me is, and this is the last thing I'm going to say before we do sign off. I'll let you sign off. Is this game? I love this game because it showed what we are lacking. It shows where we can improve, and it shows who is ready to step up. Reece ready to step up. Eddie, I'm impressed. I like this from Eddie. I don't mind if he has I feel like I was going to ask you this off air, and I think we'll have a conversation off air about it. But I feel like for me personally, Eddie works in the Martinelli Zinchenko dynamics when that's that sort of left-sided striker with Jesus. I think that can work. I don't feel like it works with Tierney as well. This game proved me wrong. This game showed that Eddie can work in sort of that central area, peel wide, and come back inside. And he did it very well. He did it well all game. He was an outlet. He was someone that really wanted to show that what he was about in this competition. He loved this competition. So yeah, Eddie was great. But there's obviously holding Cedric Hine as well. This was his moment, man, and he shirked his.
Look, we have a clog up in youth goalkeepers, so I really think it's time to make
Harry, Okonkwo, Hine, Grajic. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and so there's going to be tough decisions to make. And look, I think fundamentally this kind of wraps up though now with no Carabao Cup. It's really only the FA Cup, and I think from this moment on, the Europa League is going to be something that Mikel's going to take seriously from a starting perspective at this point, right?
This was their chance, man.
It kind of wraps up the B
team knockout competition.
Well, it wraps up the B team winners, and fundamentally, it's really only been Reece Nelson that has really stepped up. That's just fun, and Matt Turner. I think toward like the start, he had a really rough intro, but then
I think
Matt Turner definitely displayed some
for that midfield. Because the thing is, I don't think it had enough. And I feel like if it had enough
for sure,
to like develop a partnership between the three of them, maybe it could have been a thing. But Emil's going to come back. That's going to be a thing. There's going to be minutes. I don't know if Marquinhos gets loaned out. If he does, then I feel that we'll see that ESR Vieira dynamic.
Like, look, personally, I think that you probably could see a case for him doing it, especially without a Carabao Cup, because again, there's no games now that don't matter. That's basically what my point was going to be. And if there's an injury, you're not going to put.
I'm kind of curious to see that ESR Vieira dynamic on the right. I'm curious to see it personally.
I've been saying it for so long. It's.
I mean, we saw it in preseason, and it worked really well against.
It's Emile Smith-Rowe's best position, and when you have Reece Nelson now, that's been excellent. That Reece Nelson Sambi Lakanga dynamic, who isn't as dynamic, but he's a little bit more touchline, like that works for me. And then if you've got Kieran Tierney bombing on high and wide. Look, it starts to look interesting in terms of a B team selection, but I think that the depth concerns are a little bit overblown. I must be honest with you. I think when we talk about it, we're going to have a lot of debates, by the way, guys, in terms of those transfer pods. Everybody that really likes them, you guys love transfer stuff, so we will absolutely
get ready to hear some arguments because we do not agree on a lot of stuff.
Well, we'll be doing quite a bit of transfer pods and a lot of kind of content related to that coming up as well. Actually. But
I don't know. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, when he's back, like on the 26th on Boxing Day, he'll go immediately into the squad. Yeah. And
how many weeks has it been?
It's been like 3-4 weeks. I mean, the symphysis pubis stuff would only take you out 4 to 6 weeks. So in the middle of the World Cup, he should be back. Yeah. The only thing is if whether or not he's built. Like it depends on when he starts running. Like if he's out in the squad, say the first training session that he's out in Dubai, if he's not with the team training, he's not in team training, delay it a week until you see that. That's essentially what I would say, because you need at least 3 training sessions with the team before you can be considered match fit. And then even then they might want to extend it to kind of give him a little bit of a preseason. So in terms of when you would expect ESR back, just double check in terms of when you see him in first team training. When you see him in first team training, I would say that he's 2 weeks away from that point. So, and then when you see him with the group, he's probably another 3 or 4 times away. So that's what I would talk about on Emile Smith-Rowe. And look, even if he's on the plane to Dubai, that doesn't say too much just because it could be rehab. Like you can do rehab in Dubai as well. So it has to be if you see him in pictures with the group, not just in a rondo, but like in a scrimmage. But yeah, mate, like I think Boxing Day is definitely a good goal for him. Maybe the start of January. But guys, it comes quick and fast. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I know it was a tough one, but guys, we're going to be back tomorrow with the Wolves preview. Again, because there's a lot of games and we play tomorrow, the Wolves preview is probably going to be like right after the Man City Brentford game and right before the next form of the kickoff. So make sure you guys, before you head out, you guys can smash the like button. It really helps. Yeah, it really, really helps the channel if you guys could smack the like button before you guys get out. Hit the bell for notification to know when, in fact, we do upload. And of course, all the boys' socials. I'm at GeorgeV_AFC and Curran's at Curran BoP. And Chris, of course, is at CKFTBL. And we are Ball Over Passion here on YouTube or at BoP Footy on the Twitter. So, guys, thank you so, so much. And we will absolutely be back with content for you as early as tomorrow. So make sure you guys are tuning in, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.